Welcome, everybody, to the Leonis Report, episode 30. A little bit different this week. I am going to be emceeing this week. You can see Will is not at home as he usually is. Will, where are you this week?
I'm out in Vegas. I'm on the West Coast for a little vacation and work getaway. So let's talk about. We obviously wanted to do the podcast, and I know it's a little scuffed. Microphone quality's not there. Not the best lighting, but it's a podcast, not a video. At least a
That is
video.
dedication, though. Dedication to the craft.
Exciting week. Why not? It's a good stuff to talk about.
I know that's. I mean, you pinged me the other day. You were super excited about some of the things that you heard about over in JP. So we decided, despite the vacation, to move forward anyway. So yeah. So on our side of the game this week, we have Melania coming in. That's kind of the big draw this week. Obviously, she's a little bit delayed at this point. Over in JP, she came out roughly 1 month after Alaya did. At this point now, we're getting close to 2 months after Alaya was released on our side of the game. How have your initial impressions changed of that unit? What do you think of how she fits into to where we are now?
Honestly, nothing's really changed. I think she's scaled well with the game. They've set her up as one of the better missile units, still among the top for what she brings in terms of some of the dispel, some of the select two, some of the status effects. They've given her like an above average amount of defense pen, which is certainly reassuring. Where characters like Rugia and obviously even Irvine to an extent struggles with that sometimes, but she still brings a lot for her vid card, obviously, which is a whole different conversation. But her as a unit, I think she's still solid. I know a lot of people were using her to counter Alaya, and that's still going to be the case. But I think she's a well-rounded enough unit. We're seeing more, gun and missile-oriented vision cards come out to support that class. That as we kind of evolve, I think she's one of the best units you can still bring from a missile perspective. Maybe not a need for many players being a permanent pool too. You can kind of wait a little while, but she's definitely a two thumbs up unit. Yeah. How about you?
I agree. I think that she's a good unit. Like she's probably one of the best gunners that we've seen come into the game so far. I mean, she's right up there with Alaya, who's probably the best one we've seen come through to date. I mean, you famously had that video not too long ago, kind of where you were looking at gunners in today's meta. I tended to agree with most of your points there. I think that though that there is some space for missile to shine in terms of there's really nobody out there is really building missile resistance right now. I think if you can find the right map, the right setup, we do have Irvine in the game. We have Irvine's card. They certainly, from like a kit perspective, they kind of match up very well together, and I think they were designed to work together. So if you have Irvine, you might be able to get some good use out of this unit. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to pull her, but I'm thinking, especially in light of the news over in JP, I'm going to skip on this one because we're so close now to obviously a big collab coming through, and we'll talk about that here pretty soon. Yeah, what do you think? Are you planning on trying to go for her at all?
I'll do the basic polls, the 80 Mind Sphere, the 300 paid ticket, whatever comes with it. I'll see how that far that gets me along what the banner offers for a step up, if you will, in terms of completing the bar. But I am hopeful for her. You brought up a great point with Irvine. I think her synergy with his is a dangerous one. That they are great enough on their own that I think the pairing of them together is legitimately scary. To the point that you said people aren't stacking missile res, it's obviously part of it. But even if you are, they bring enough in terms of the types of imperils, the follow-up damage, and just the way they attack you. There's enough like protect dispel. They have enough survivability between the two of them that I think them. When you look at what that Melnia card brings for other synergies too, you throw on a character like Raph, maybe into that team of three. That's a very scary team that can definitely, on the right map, pick you apart pretty easily.
Yeah, that's the thing with the gun group right now. They are synergizing really, really well with the mace group. So that's kind of the natural tank. Outside of Barrett, there's no tank, within the gun group, and it's kind of questionable how good of a tank he actually is, and in today's meta anyway. But Raf, I think, is the natural kind of front for that team. Seen it got a little bit of play over in JP. I've seen some decent things with it. It's really not meta shaking, but I think you can certainly cause some damage with it.
Yep.
I think that in terms of that Irvine pairing, once again, like you said, he's bringing the imperils. Melanie is kind of bringing a bit more of the utility. She's got the dispel. She's got kind of the ailments, status ailment angle that she brings. So that can be really disruptive. Like she has that select two that can sleep. So I actually
Yep.
kind of see her kit though really kind of congruent with Halloween Lucio in a lot of ways. He also has that AoE sleep ability. He's got kind of the healing down debuff, the very high healing down debuff
Yes.
angle that he brings. So I feel like there's a lot of like, if you pulled Lucio, I mean, it's kind of like she's a ranged version of Lucio almost. Obviously, she's not
100%.
an evade unit, but I mean, in terms of like the utility package that they're bringing, he also has that dispel that he brings. So
It is so, and regardless, even if there is overlap, they're two not only vastly different characters and how you play against them, where obviously you
yep,
not only need totally different resistances, but you need totally different stats. Where obviously him, you need the accuracy. For her, you probably need other metrics of survivability or maybe some movement to close the gap a little quicker. So although they overlap, there are two completely different ways to attack them, and they're obviously in two completely different vision card groups too. So they overlap with other units outside of themselves. So definitely some overlap. I think it's a testament to how good Lucio is, quite honestly, as well.
yeah.
But yeah, for Earth in particular, both options very potent.
They did announce that there is the kind of the double barracks perk that's going to continue with Melania, assuming you pull her. I think that's nice, and obviously that 400 scrolls on the bingo board is another nice perk. So I like that they're kind of incentivizing a little bit, or at least rewarding people that do pull early, kind of giving a little bit of a bonus there. Even despite of that, though, I'm probably going to do the same. I might get that 300 pay ticket, might do a Mindsphere pull. Other than that, I need to save resources right now because there's a lot coming that I want to grab for in the future.
Definitely. Obviously, Final Fantasy IX is top of mind, and that new Hollow Vision card, which we'll talk about from a few different perspectives, but definitely a lot of things that are going to suck up some Visior where you got to be picky. And obviously, with that short roadmap now, only a month or so, you really do have to be extra picky because you don't know how quickly things can turn.
Yeah. Melania does have a unique weapon that's coming in with her as well. We'll be able to farm this week. It's kind of an interesting one. It's got an additional healing debuff that it will throw on, assuming you crit the enemy, and it will stack with any other healing debuff that gets applied. So, assuming she crits, she can get up to a 90 healing power down, which is really quite substantial, especially against like the summer glassies and all the heal back tanks out there. There's a lot of healing in the meta right now. You think about Saul as well. Do you think that's actually the best pick for Melnia? Is there any other ones that you might consider?
There's definitely other ones I'd consider, but I think that's the one that brings the best strength. Because to your point, there is so much healing power right now that even the more mundane hit powers down of like 30 or 40 doesn't put a big chunk in a lot of the types of healing at the moment from the external healing perspective. Yeah, those are still pretty potent. But I remember I just released my Lucio showcase last week, and he had attacked a Summer Glassy with that 30 healing power down. And she self healed for almost 11,000 HP despite that healing power down from people who thought that it actually didn't work. I actually had some calcs on it, and like it's just one of those things that we are getting to the point where a lot of those percentage-based heal back mechanics, where people are getting free healing power 10 on a trust stone passive, maybe even more on a defense or a spirit set, that you need to really amplify the other way the healing power down to counteract some of that. So I do think that's an important part of what she brings, and one of the best things to like synergize with Irvine, who's got none of that, and even some of the missile units in general is not necessarily a ton. I think CTF has it, but CTF is kind of an afterthought for many at this point. But I think it's a really good weapon for it. There's obviously better ones if you want to go for more damage oriented builds, but I think that one has a very strong place, particularly for a character like Soul right now, who's got so much healing, not only for himself but for teammates. And I know that's something that I even think like Dagger coming out now from Final Fantasy IX has a similar mechanic. Obviously, Faris comes to mind. There's enough of that like tangential healing in the battlefield that getting that extra healing power down, big difference maker.
I do like that weapon. Another one that I was actually looking at was the Peacemaker. That's is like one of the better
Absolutely.
guns out there. She can actually her class as was added to one that can access the unique passives of like the reaction block and the defense bin and things like that. So maybe for more of a damage oriented option, I think that's certainly top of the list. I agree though. I think for standard play, I would probably amplify that healing power because I think that's one of her main niches and one of the main reasons why she's good. I do think that niche makes her a pretty decent play against Saul. Obviously, he's one of the kings of the meta at the moment, at least in the top of the brackets. His healing is really can be overwhelming for teams that aren't prepared to handle it. Do you think that Melania kind of is good in that matchup? Personally, I think that she can be, but She is actually lacking a barrier break, which is obviously one of the problems if you're a physical unit trying to go up against him. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Absolutely. I think that's a tough matchup. There's a lot of characters where you talk about that missile attack and the Irvine follow up that works very, very well. So is it a more difficult one? Also, because his health pool ends up getting exceptionally high. If you give him any kind of external healing, even if you have that healing power down, it does still add up. And I do like the potential though for the status ailment that if you do land that sleep on him, let's say, or if you go for that berserk bomb with the Vega TMR. I know he's got some potential counterplay and like spacing, if you will. But I think that he's still a tough matchup for both of them for that barrier reason that you brought up.
And also that he just has an extreme amount of unit resistance. Like he can get up, 50, 60%. And the majority of Melania's attacks are unit based. She only has one AoE attack in her whole kit. And she has a select too, but obviously that's unit based as well. So I agree that I think that
Excellent.
the ailment angle is definitely like one way that she might be able to slide in and still do well in that matchup. But otherwise, I think that he's probably going to take that down in a lot of cases.
I would agree. And I think we mentioned this last week for the class match where he does get a lot of synergy with Charles at the moment, who does a lot of buffing. That Melanie is her AoE that you brought up is a dispel. So I do think that that's a valuable piece in her kit. That even though you can't take away everything that he does, you can kind of get at him a little faster with that dispel ahead of time that not all characters can. So it's still a very dicey matchup. I don't think it's a strong one for her, but considering the other alternative options, I think she's got as good a case as any, depending on the map for sure.
I know one thing that we were talking about maybe 1 or 2 weeks ago was kind of a water missile unit or a water gunner. And obviously, with kind of the earth water synergy, that would almost be ideal to counter both Sol and Elia with that combination. Maybe something we can look out for in the future.
Absolutely. I'm sure there'll be some coming. A pendulum always swings, right? They give us a bunch of slash units, then a bunch of strike units, now we're getting some missile. You know, it always
Exactly.
comes full circle.
They did tease for us the blood soaked road cards. We won't go into the details of that. I mean, we've talked a little bit about it in the past, but definitely save 10K for that. That's kind of where I'll leave it for this week. We'll dive into it a little bit more next time, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of a ton of characters and meta implications. That's a meta defining card for a whole group of people. So definitely give that the proper time.
Absolutely. That's about all that there was in terms of what we're getting this week for kind of new content. There wasn't any new MA2s, no other new equipment to farm, no LB upgrades either. I thought this might have been maybe a good week to throw in Comral, the MR Fire Monk. Not getting him either. Then maybe he'll come along with Bromwell next week or something. But yeah, so that is going to transition us now into the war room, where we're going to look at PvP meta maps and things of that nature. Guild Battle Supremacy obviously just wrapped up. That last match was yesterday. What did you think of Supremacy? How did you do, and what were your takeaways?
We were in that third bracket overall. We did go undefeated. We won that bracket. It was it's tough. It's tough. Not I don't know how to say it. The map obviously is fine. I think we figured it out enough that there was nothing really surprising or interesting. It was kind of mundane after a couple days there where we knew exactly how to play it. I don't think I saw anything of excitement, if you will. Unfortunately, it's just that bracket. There wasn't necessarily anything that we had to game plan too specifically for. There's not as much wall building in a lot of that area, and not as many of the people building characters like Soul and Elia. So it's not as much of a game plan. But I know that very top bracket that you were in looked exceptionally exciting. I think Howell come in right behind VIP. I think you guys are like fourth or fifth.
We managed to get fifth last night with we locked up a win against Lukavi. It was a super close match. Came right down to the last action. It was like everybody in our Discord chat was blowing up. It was one of those exciting matches that everybody's kind of on the edge of their seat for the last action. You're analyzing it, kind of in mocking it out how it might go, and it went our way. So hats off to them. They put up a good fight, and everybody we fought was on their A game. There was no easy wins. No, every match was a dogfight. Congrats to, I believe, Chocobos. I think they took number one for Supremacy. But we put up some good fights ourselves. We actually beat Bella as well. which I think that
That's a
surprised
huge win.
some people. So yeah, we
Yep.
definitely tried to compete and showed what we could do this week. So it was fun.
Nice. But you run for team most often on offense there.
I had three comps for attack. I was using a little bit of fire, where I was using that Shawl's Rain Sol group, which is absolutely incredible, especially in the lower cost, because Shawl's is like really good with that team. It just obliterates dark, like 9 stars against dark. So anybody that was dark walling was getting obliterated by that team. It also, did very well against Elia teams as well. You think Rain, he's got that huge strike weakness. Doesn't matter with Saul next to him. He gets the strike res buff. There's no dispel for
Right.
Elia, so he shuts her down too. The other team I was playing was that Earth Evade team that we looked a little bit last week with Bradley, Lucio, and
Yep.
Dialdo. Played that a little bit. Also a great team in that low cost format. Lucio is really strong there. Another team that I was using that I actually was probably my favorite one to use, and I used this a lot as the week went on, was Dia, Summer Glassy, and Ferris, which was another like banger team.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that was a team that we used water almost exclusively to beat Bella, and it was beating even Elia teams, that water team. So very cool and strong team. Dia is actually a beast. She can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great team for a bunch of well-rounded reasons. A lot of slash synergy, obviously. A lot of sustain with Ferris and what she can bring to. And you get obviously some spirit scaling, some defense scaling things. That's a really fun team to bring for sure.
It was fun actually being able to see it compete against lightning. That's kind of the something that water really has never been able to do. Summer Glassy is able to kind of turn the tables, at least against physically based lightning teams. Anyway,
Definitely. That's actually something I applaud Gumi for right now. The element wheel is not near as much of a gimme as it used to be in terms of like guaranteeing a win or a loss. There's enough things that they've done from a survivability and vision cards like that, obviously makes it very fun. It's not just a guaranteed win or a guaranteed loss. So as a theory crafter, I'm really digging what they've done balance wise.
so in terms of other PvP things going on this week, obviously we had a day off today. We're recording this on Tuesday, so that's nice to kind of get a break there after Supremacy. But we are going to finally be getting a new Guild War map. We were kind of stuck on that last one for what seemed like forever because it never actually changed. Kind of in between a couple of limiteds there. It had that lightning effect for the unit resist up that seemed really overpowered for them, I think. But we're going to be going to Cavern 2. This one's going to have an earth bonus for AoE resistance up, and then a gun unit bonus for attack percentage up. Looks very similar to the other cavern map. I honestly couldn't tell the difference, but it does look like a new map. We'll see how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I'm always excited for those. Yeah, you get to see different spacing, and this one is likely to be slightly more tailor-made for Melania, which obviously gives people trying to use some missile units a little something new and fun to experiment with. I'm not a huge fan of the Earth unit AoE res up, which is one of the effects that it gave. We'll talk about that in the Q&A later. That's one of those ones that it does have a really tangible effect on the results that I think sometimes it skews some of the initial impressions of some of these characters because these are some pretty sizable buffs for these characters where they never used to be this potent. We'll talk about this more later in the Q&A, but obviously regardless, I'm very excited to get to a new map here and get to test some of these new units and see what they can do.
Yeah, especially where this one, it's really incentivizing that Melania pick with the double bonus. She's getting the AoE res and the gun unit bonus potentially there. But I mean, maybe you want to break
Yeah.
out Rugia this week, or maybe you want to go crazy and break out Mustadio. We'll see.
Oh, you,
Good
dude,
old
crazy,
blast from the past.
psychopathic. Dude, it's fucking crazy. If I didn't say Summer Lilith, bringing up Mustadio is that's almost trolling at that point.
He needs his upgrades. Aside from that, no other real PvP updates to look at this week. So we'll transition right into what I think is the juiciest part of the conversation this week. It's going to be the JP updates and the Leonis spy report. Before we actually get to like the big collab news, though, there was a couple of things that came into the game last week for JP. So here is the new vision card. This one got released last week in JP, but I have to call out the artwork on this card. I love it's almost like a callback to the Exorcist card, although it's kind of cooking up some funky stew here. And the look on Grifford and Elias' faces is cracks me up. Apparently, in like the lore of the card, they actually end up liking it. So Somebody actually was
Hmm.
able to read that over in JP and mention that to me, which I thought was pretty funny. This card is going to be for the axe group, gun group, spear, and then sword B, which is the warrior group. So there has actually been a lot of action for a couple of those groups in particular, axe, gun, and then the warrior group there. Getting several cards here recently, even on Halloween, there was obviously that new agility and luck card. What are you thinking on of this a card in terms of the effects here?
Overall, I obviously love it. Number one, it's got that unit res, which is one of the staples that you look for. I do like the choice of classes here as well. A lot of people might think it's sometimes redundant to give some of these cards with similar effects, but as long as you're switching up who they can be paired with on these cards, it's still a huge value add in terms of opening the doors to additional synergies. So while yes, Spear has gotten a lot of cards lately. Axe obviously already has a unit res card. This is just another one, but it's a whole different set of characters to go with. And I love seeing Gun here. Obviously, Missile for a while did not have a lot of love from a vision card perspective. The same can be said for the Sword B Warrior class, where they are very much lackluster. So getting a card like this, other than just a unit res, crit evade, I think you're going to see is still one of those secret stats that not a lot of people get a lot of insight to, but does have a lot of good damage, reducing qualities in terms of not taking the extra crit damage. And the 50% attack is absolutely sizable considering it's a main slot vision card potentially here. I love the bestowed effects, the 10% slash res pen and the 5% agility. That's like two top tier things you want to look for. In addition, some of the stats there with the 3 defense and the dexterity. I love the characters here. I mean, you have a couple staples here for tanks. Obviously, King Mont jumps out, and he's done a couple of these. Dialdo is another one who's been a staple in any of those Pierce teams. But then you start to bring in some of the wrinkles of these missile units that don't always get to get put into these teams. And Spear, I love what they're doing with the Spear class of units. That although maybe we're not getting these S tier Spear units like Summer or Jade and the Celebrated, the fact that they're getting so much exposure to these kinds of vision cards, I love the fact that you can probably throw one or two Spear units in at a team like this every once in a while and really just catch people off guard. So I think it's very balanced. I think there's a lot of characters here that get two thumbs up in terms of viability. What about you?
I feel like this entire year they've been kind of quietly laying bricks for an eventual spear meta. You look at almost all the characters that have come in or have that -10 pierce resistance. It's one of the main reasons why Dialdo just trucks everybody out there despite being a tank. But then you have all these vision cards there, that are coming in here and there. I feel like they're just I mean, I think we talked a little bit about this last week, is they're missing that one like next generation unit to come in and then just blow it wide open. They're just missing that final piece. And this card obviously fits into that. It's another unit resist card for them. It's another attack card for them so that, they can double up and layer those effects if they want to. 100% agree on the bestowed effect. Two very, very nice things that you like to see there, really amp up the speed and offense. I'm definitely interested in going for this card, I think, when it comes out. Maybe one of the last ones that we're going to be able to expect on that 10K pity. We'll kind of get into that here in a moment. But so in other news, over in JP, they actually just today is their 4th anniversary update. They the new collab started over there with Final Fantasy 9. That was kind of the biggest news over the weekend. We kind of only got that news not too long ago. And then, here it is with the update today. Obviously, Zidane coming in there, Dagger, otherwise known as Garnet. And then they're going to be getting Vivi, I think, next week. So, what do you think about that collab news? Are you pretty excited about that game?
I'm excited for it. Final Fantasy IX was not one of my favorites overall. It's one that I very much enjoy. I knew this was also a matter of time, but okay, and I think it's fitting to come on an anniversary. I know there was some debate whether the 4th anniversary would be Final Fantasy VIII or Final Fantasy IX. I know even 12 had some thoughts there, but I think 9 is a deserving spot. Obviously, the characters they picked are great. I don't think I would have picked any three other characters. You might be able to make a case for someone like, I don't know, maybe Steiner, but I don't know how you can replace Zidane, Vivi, or Garnet on anything there. But I am very intrigued by their kits. There's a lot to pick apart with a lot of unique effects that they've given Zidane, and obviously Vivi, we still have a lot to see. But I think they did a great job here, and I loved the producer's letter too from the global perspective. I thought this sounds dumb. I remember finishing reading Hiroki's producer letter, and it was one of the first times where I kind of just went like, "Oh, that was wholesome." Like I just didn't expect it. I don't know. It clarified a lot of things, and it did kind of seem heartfelt. Where sometimes it just feels like a little lip lapping. I don't know. I appreciated it.
Yeah, and it's nice that we're going to be getting some summons there to kind of celebrate the occasion. I think JP is getting like 300 or 400 summons, and they announced that we're going to be getting that as well. I don't know if we're going to be getting some of like the special banners, like in terms of like selects or mass shard pulls or anything like that. But at a minimum, free pulls is good. It's kind of a way to replenish your Mog medals and things like that. And we do know that those vision card Mog medals are going to be coming pretty important here in the short future. In a couple of months, they have teased a new system for vision cards as kind of part of this whole fourth anniversary information dump, I would say, in the stream they had a couple of days ago. They're going to be having this awakening system for your older VCs. They're calling it Elder Awakenings or something like that. That's supposed to be coming, I think, in January, I want to say, or early next year. But that's going to be kind of a new tier of awakening for them. You're going to be able to even awaken espers further to kind of open up their boards a little bit more. So that's pretty exciting. I know that's something that I've wanted to see. But yeah, they said that you're going to be able to use the old shards and existing resources to upgrade them. In other vision card news, though, one thing a lot of people have been talking about is the new vision card that was released today. It is something that they teased before the stream. Even it's a new visual look to a vision card. It's called the Hollow VC, is what they're calling it. What do you think about that system? What do you know about it so far?
So from what I can tell, the Holovision card gives each one gives some unique effects to some kind of mode in the game, whether that's PvE or very rarely, but Guild Wars, Arena, certain kinds of bonuses. So there is an extra statistical effect to them. From what I can also tell, this first one is stacked with 4 total effects, not just the normal 3 from a party perspective. They are substantially more expensive, though. They do not have the normal 10K pity system where you get it on the 5th step. I think someone did the math for it, and the average cost, if you were to pity this vision card, is upwards of 27,000 viz. That's the most recent estimate, which obviously is a massive difference. You're talking almost triple the cost. So there's obviously some pushback from what I can tell in JP in terms of how much it now costs. That I think my only counter argument to that is that that's all they're doing for fourth anniversary. That they're releasing new like loaded vision cards that cost a lot more. I think we got off kind of easy if you consider what they had historically done for anniversary power creep between the Trust Zone system and all the points that came with that in terms of overhauling the gameplay. The reincarnation system, even that's expensive for many people. And you're buying those rainbow scrolls and what it does for power creep in the game. If you know, as far as things go here, I think we got kind of easy almost. It's obviously expensive, and I'm not looking forward to that. But at the same time, we only have one of them to really go off of. So I'm really waiting to see how they implement the rest of the system before I'm raising any pitchforks about how expensive the new system is. I don't know. What about you? Did I miss anything there?
I think that more or less covers it. So there's no guaranteed get of the card after the 5 steps. You have to go basically 2 rounds of the 5 steps to get your 10 pulls, and then you can pity the card if you don't get it along the way. So essentially 1,000 coins or 20,000 Visior is your guaranteed get. That I think alone is pretty tough, depending on how often these are going to be released. Like obviously at this point, we don't know if Hollow VCs are going to be the only thing that they issue here going forward, or are they going to be an occasional thing? Is it just going to be once a month? Is it going to be once every other month? We really don't know at this point. So is it going to be more akin to like the Dark Espers that come along every couple of months even? That's still to be seen at this point. We do know that both Final Fantasy IX vision cards though are hollow VCs, so it does kind of set the stage that they are going to be coming kind of a bit more often. So we'll see what happens there. Certainly not looking forward to paying more for vision cards. I feel like, at least, especially in global, we kind of have a sweet spot, I feel like, with them because, we do get those medals along the way on the step up. It helps us build the cards. JP doesn't get that and hasn't got that for some time. So they're kind of already used to spending more for vision cards. We'll have to see how the global team will adjust it if they do at all for those hollow vision cards. Before anybody kind of nopes out of the game, I would say wait to see what happens here because we do occasionally have differences in terms of the costs and the banners and things like that. I do also know that JP is also already raising a pretty big stink about it. They're not happy about it, especially as people were kind of excited after that live stream. I feel like Gumi had built up some goodwill there. They had a very strong live stream with the things they presented. People were excited about the content and the new quality of lives and things like that. So it's unfortunate that the narrative kind of changes there with them adding this increased expense to kind of a staple of the game, which is the vision cards. But
Definitely. And I will say, I think one of the big things that dampers it is the Mog medals we just talked about. You actually can't purchase Holovision shards Mog medals. So although you can use that for the future update and updating your vision cards, that's part of the outrage of the cost is that you really can't take any of the bite off of it by using current Mog medals. It's literally just all Viz. And yeah, I mean I think one of the things that I'm still like, weighing pros and cons. It's the idea that it is obviously a new form of power creep where you're getting a fourth party effect. It seems pretty potent. They're obviously up to date and they're scaled with the power creep of the game for what it offers for attributes. The one thing I also want to keep in mind though, it's a 60 cost vision card. So when you talk about like bang for your buck for limited kind of content for what it would fit that card in the future, like I think you're probably going to get more use out of it. Whereas something like these Dark Esper cards takes a lot of vis to pull. They're very high cost, so for cost limited stuff, you can't always use them. But having a 60 cost vision card like this with that many attributes, you get some of the upside of the other game modes of what it gives for bonuses there. Obviously, for PvE stuff, it's not a huge draw for most people. But for those that are doing a lot of PvE content, I think this is a welcome thing as well that rewards them for the work that they put in terms of top scoring on certain charts that you get rewarded for what you spent on the viz in the form of kind of getting a competitive edge. So yeah, I'm still not fully set, and even then, I know it's more expensive if we go in every single week. That's gonna stink. But at the same time, I remember with the 140 upgrades, like how many times was I spending 5K a week for the Rainbow Scrolls? How often was I spending the 3K for a new antler so I could 140 a unit? Like how much viz did I spend for the reincarnation system and the 140 system? It probably is as much or more than what the extra cost of the vision cards are. So that's why I'm trying to like play the opportunity cost here in terms of what we normally get for anniversary power creep. But it's a tough one to swallow for sure.
I think that's the tough part about these anniversaries is that they use that as their opportunity to really recoup those funds, I guess, for whatever, development that that they had put into kind of these new quality of lives and things. It's unfortunate that, especially after they really went over the top with the reincarnation and really drove away a lot of spending players, that I feel like everybody is kind of immediately thinking it's going to be like that again. Hopefully it's not going to be that bad. Obviously there's still more to see there, but we'll kind of continue to cover it here as the weeks go on. In better news though, there is a ton of amazing quality of life coming, and I want to talk a little bit about that before we actually talk about the new units. Obviously, I know this is one of the things that you were excited about. What was kind of the biggest thing that you saw there that was that you want to talk about?
To me, the Trust Stone update immediately comes to mind, where you can now equip Trust Stones to units instead of TMRs, and it sounds like the same stone can be used on any unit. They're doing away with some of the rolling and the RNG of getting some of those stats. That to me is one of the biggest hurdles in mocking, where if you just want to switch a Trust Stone, or sorry, switch a TMR on a character, you have to leave your formation screen, you got to go to the equipment screen, you got to switch over the Trust Stones, you got to go equip the new thing. There's so many steps to it that I love the fact that you can now put on a character. You're still going to have issues though, where you're going to need to switch your trust stones depending on the mode you're playing in. So what I mean is maybe your arena soul has different trust stones than your guild war soul. So there's still going to be times where it's not ideal and you have to play with it. But I think the pain points, the number of touches to make that switch is going to be far less than having to switch out an actual equipment piece every single time and open up the menu and scroll through all your equipment pieces, yada yada. I think it's really smart. Trust stones are old enough at this point. I think it's no longer necessarily like a huge competitive advantage for getting a good roll. Enough people are doing it if they're competent in how they want to strategize it. Yeah, I like it overall. What about you? What other ones, or what do you
It's
think about that?
So on the Trust Stones, absolutely incredible update. I think that with this iteration of it, it's finally like what it actually should have been from the very beginning. It's going to be very easy. It's going to be straightforward. Now at this point, rather than having 10 different stones with HP and luck on them, I'm going to have one stone with HP and luck. Basically, instead of kind of going horizontally and creating all these different sets that maybe had duplicate effects, the goal now is to create a stone with each individual combination, and then you have access to everything and just kind of set it, use that one stone on wherever you want to place it. I do love that they actually you can set it per game mode. You know, if you want to set it,
Oh,
and you know you can even use the same stone, like that same HP and luck stone. You can have it even on multiple characters on multiple modes. You only need to have one copy of it. Really, really cool. The rolling for trust passives is completely eliminated. You just pick what you want, put it on the stone, and it's done. Some other really nice things in terms of kind of really upping the quality of life is going to be some of the grinding in terms of like affinity and resonance. That's completely going away. I think that's essentially going to become almost like I think I heard it's like almost like a slider or configurable in terms of like, you know, how you want to set your affinity. There's going to be some new things coming in with like the auto repeat functionality that's finally going to be getting added into multiplayer and raids. So really, really nice. You won't have to rely on macros and things like that in some emulator. Proxies for second Guild War attacks was another one that's really nice. I know some people they maybe forget to send their second attack because they have to go to bed or maybe something comes up. Now they can flip the proxy on. Maybe they want to do their first attack. Somebody else can send their second one. So that's certainly nice for that as well.
just want to go back real quick to the affinity and the resonance grinding. That's obviously a big deal at this point. Early on in the game, that was a form of gatekeeping, if you know what I mean, where you needed enough skip tickets, you needed to do enough repeats to get that. Because you had the keys for a while that were purchasable, and obviously they've become more abundant. It's a very, very antiquated system that really is not friendly for new players either in terms of trying to figure out how to max the stats. I love the fact that they're doing away with it now, where you no longer, have to grind your character with other characters, particularly with the rainbow teams now, where it used to be, you if you were in mono element, you knew which 5 wind units you were going to use. So you could easily reso that new unit with a couple new wind units with all these iterations of different weapon classes now. To have to constantly think about how to reso these new units, all these different weapon types is daunting. It's a waste of time. And the secret upside is also for PvE content, where a lot of times when you talk about Trials of Reckoning and things of that nature, there's a lot of runs where you want to tweak your agility or tweak certain stats. And a lot of it has to do with the affinity bonuses you get from your espers and from the characters around you. So now that the fact that you can toggle the affinity levels also allows for those PvE masters, talking to one of them right here, more opportunities to really like fine tune your agility, your turn order, things of that nature. So I love that. And the other real quick thing on the proxy for second Guild War attacks, that's a big one for top end of the game. One of the biggest reasons why a lot of people don't use that kind of attack is typically because you'll attack once. You will not be full strength for a second attack, but in terms of min maxing your opponent, a lot of times they ask you to hold that second attack till they only have like a team of 1 unit remaining or a team of 2 units remaining. And by that time, you're probably in bed most times. So the fact that you can now leave that to a sub leader is going to have big implications for top end play for how they min max that matchup after you've used your first attack.
I think that Gumi has like knocked it out of the park with these quality of lives. I don't recall us ever getting so many great ones in kind of one anniversary. Couple of points that I think that they missed on though. The bravery and faith system, it should have been lumped in here
Yes.
as well because that is another one. If they're trying to attract and keep new players and make this easier to understand, that system should have been lumped in here and fixed as well. Fine if they want to keep it to kind of call back to tactics, but make how you actually increase your brave and faith a slider, make it configurable, get rid of the farming and increase it in the barracks. It's so dumb. Another thing
Yep, I agree.
is the acquisition of shards and like hard quests. I feel like that should be increased as well. It was never increased with the implementation of the heart of the reincarnation system. It's one of the problems with it in terms of why people were leaving and the expense of it because we just don't have great access to shards. And it's one of the reasons why this couple of weeks we've had here with increased shard accrual from the barracks and hard quests is almost felt like a breath of fresh air because it's like, wow, I can feel like I'm actually making progress here on a daily basis because I'm not getting one or two shards. Now I'm getting 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever it is. So
Absolutely.
hopefully that those are things that they can address here in year 4 as well.
I totally agree. Right, and there's so many characters at this point in the game too. I think they're giving anybody a significant edge by amplifying the amount of shards those hard quests. You're still limited to with the special bonus pack or whatever. You're still limited to 20 hard quests a day at a certain royal rank. You can't go beyond that. So you're not going to break the bank in terms of acquiring these shards. But it's definitely a nice, helpful bump for really tailoring some newer units a lot quicker. And
Definitely.
older units too. Characters you didn't spend Viz on 8 months ago. You know what I mean? You don't want those characters in the graveyard and never able to use them ever because you don't want to spend the Viz 8 months later on a character that's been power crept. If you want to use hard quests to do that, like it's nice to still get them up a little faster.
People want to feel like they're making progress on those characters, especially for free to play players and for people who don't invest a lot of money into the game. Them feeling like they're making progress and advancing is very important for the retention of those players, in my opinion. If they feel like they're getting nowhere for months and months, like they are now, I think that's a big problem for keeping those players around, which at the end of the day is a big problem for everyone that plays the game.
Agreed.
So that said, I think the main piece of here is obviously that Final Fantasy IX collaboration. We talked a little bit about the what we thought of it. Let's talk a little bit about the units. So the free get unit is Dagger or Garnet. She is going to be another Earth mage, it seems. She's got a main job of mace. She's going to have a sub job of sword sorcerer, which is the Valentine's Miranda job, and then Kodadama is the third job. What do you think of the reveals so far? And actually, their info is up now on Wood of Calc as well. What do you think of Dagger so far?
So I'm just off my phone just to remind myself something. I actually genuinely really like what they did with her. They've done a special new thing on the mastery ability where they've built in a reduced mechanics. She got 10% reduced magical damage. She does everything 15% magic res. I do need to double check that stat, but they've given her a fair amount of magic res pen here. 40% innately. She's got 20 from her 140 ability, and I think she gets about 20 here from her passive ability. So from a power creep perspective, from a damage dealing perspective, I really like where they started off on those penetrations.
She gets
It
20
does
on her
seem to be
weapon
a
too.
thank you. So
Yep.
thank you. 20 from the weapon, 20 from the 140, so 40 altogether. That's what it is.
Yep.
Regardless, they've done a lot of really smart things here where she does appear to be a damage dealer, but they've given her a couple curative abilities. Obviously, the limit break is one. The teammate after effect healing is another. I think it's a really smart kind of AI that we've seen Soul use. And we've even seen people kind of hard force Sylvie into using where you do have a healer AI kind of buried in there, but there is a damage thing here. Renault was kind of that character, but I think she has more of a true healer AI than they do. But they've given her enough in terms of the utility too with the protect and shell removal. She does a lot from I think the Kotodama sub too in terms of the guaranteed hit. You get some of that extra movement buff if you really want it. I am curious to see what her AI does in terms of buffing and moving, whether she stands still or not. I know that's kind of a staple of most supports is that when they use these self buff, they don't move forward. That's going to tell a lot about this character. But I think it's a soul AI from what I can tell. And obviously, I actually really like the character. I think she's very different from Renoa. I think she's very different from Queen Mashari. So I'm a big fan. 2 thumbs up for sure. How about you?
Yeah, I like what I'm seeing so far. I don't think it's like the most exciting character or a character that's going to be meta, but I think that she's got a lot of nice things going for her in the kit. She seems like she's kind of set up to be like an anti-magic, like a magic bruiser. Like she has that debuff to Spirit Pen that she can do. She's got a lot of different
Oh,
mitigations against magic
that
with like the shell. She's got a bunch of spirit and magic resistance. She's also got like the nice area resistance that she can get there as well. She's not as strong on the unit resistance angle, but that's kind of the game that Gumi's playing right now. They've got some units that are really strong against those unit attacks, some that are better against area attacks, and
Yeah, I want to add just a couple other strong bullet points that I think are really important for it. The first one being obviously a mace-oriented unit. That class is going places, so I think she's got a lot of good synergies there. But you brought up the reduction in Spirit Pen. She's the first in the game, from what I can tell, that has that. There's a couple characters that has reduced defense pen, but being able to nerf a magic damage dealer Spirit Pen there is substantial. Obviously, when you consider Soul, but as the game goes on, penetration is one of the easiest ways that they've power cut these units. When you get a character like this that can reduce so drastically that type of penetration, that scales very well with the game. And low-key underrated. It's a double attack, which is nice. Although it's magic-based, you don't really get those true chains. But it's a typeless attack, which I thought was really smart. Because as you go into these rainbow type teams, that Earth attack up is only good if it's like a mono Earth team. But as you start to expand into these rainbow teams, you get more magic attack modifiers. That's going to help a character like this that has some of these typeless attacks that also bypasses elemental res, which everyone stacks so heavily on. So I think there's like a really lot of cool small nuggets in this kit that are really prime for like the next couple months in terms of where the game is kind of going.
So I will say that she's not actually the first unit. More the water unit. She actually has a reduction of spirit penetration on her job 25. Although when you think about that
Thank you.
unit and her being used, I think that dagger may as well be the first unit to have it.
Well, it's
um,
like you said, but more as a strong case against Soul. Some I've seen people theory
yeah.
crafting with more, and I don't think it's strong enough that it actually came to fruition. But I'm glad you brought that up because that's a strong thing in her kit as well. Thank you.
In terms of like the mono earth angle, I think that she does bring like some nice utility there for earth. The dispel of courage is something that's not very it's not really widely available within earth right now. She does also pass the dispel of protect and shell to her teammates. That's kind of innate on hit. That's something as well that's not a lot of earth units have access to that dispel. So I like that they've added those elements as well. I agree. She's got kind of that Saul AI. She's got the sequential ability with Bahamut, where she'll summon out the Bahamut for that 2-hit attack, and then it's going to be like a cura to the party, which is nice. So yeah, I'm excited. This is the free get character, so everybody will be able to build her up. The artwork is absolutely amazing. They kind of really took the chibi style and kind of brought it into votive, which I wasn't sure we'd ever see that, but they managed to do it in a way that I think looks really nice. What about Zidane? Have you had a chance to look at him yet?
I have. He is a tough one. He is a tough because there's so many unique abilities in his kit we're seen put into practice yet. Not a mechanic where he can increase the amount of crit damage you take from critical hits. A little bit new there in terms of the damage amplification mechanic. He has an related to courage where he can nullify someone's ability to remove courage, which is new for the game. There's been, I think, a couple misconceptions initially here on his build. Some people thought he was an evade unit. I don't think that ended up coming to be the case. And I've actually heard some people say that he's the Winda Bradley, which I also want to dispel here. I don't think that's true at all. Maybe that might have been like a translation thing where someone was trying to make a comparison. It might have been PST who huge shout out. PST is an exceptional JP creator, but I think people took away that he's like a Wind Bradley, and that's not the case. He has an AOE that's similar to Bradley's AOE. It's similar in that it removes protect on the. I'm sorry, it removes barriers as well. But there's a critical flaw for Zidane, in my opinion, that he does not have defense pen and slashers pen on the same passive. They're on two different passives, which is number one, kind of handcuffs him a lot from a damage dealing perspective because he's got two other great passives in terms of an agility boosting one and a move plus one that I don't think you're going to see utilized as often without nerfing his damage, which is not a problem that Bradley has. Bradley has both of those penetrations on one passive, and his calculated rend not only is a double hit, number one, meaning he can chain with other people quite easily, but he can also self-chain because he's got so much CT up in his kit. Zidane has done it. I think that's one of the most underrated things about Bradley is the CT up that's not there in Zidane's kit. And obviously, Bradley also has the 50 defense pen on that ability. You're talking about like 100 defense pen, double hit, CT ability. It's not remotely close to what Zidane brings. So I think that comparison that I've heard is not really there. But as a unit, Zidane brings that unit res. He's got a fair amount of reduced counter chance, which I thought was kind of not great, to be honest. I don't know. There's enough characters that have reduced counter chance in their kit that to see it put on his like MA2 and his 140, and I think it might be on his weapon. It's kind of like a waste of slots, if that makes sense. But I think give him the Pierce sub job. I don't know. I've said a lot there. How about you? Anything that resonated or some things that I missed?
I agree. I don't think that he is like the Wind Bradley, but I do think he is set up to be like anti Bradley. Like his attack, it actually has an untranslated effect to it that is it's not posted on Word of Calc yet. But what it does is it actually CT nulls the target, basically puts a debuff on them that they can't increase their CT. So obviously that shuts down what Bradley tries to do and one of the reasons why he's so good. So that is a very unique angle for him. You can really shut down some of those CT up mechanics that have been peppered into the game over the past year or so. I really like the way that they've implemented that kind of counterplay with courage removal for him in that they've basically put it as an on hit effect. It's not that he's just immune to courage removal. He actually has to hit you and debuff your courage removal. So there is actually, it still leaves the window open to counterplay. You know, maybe you can kill him before he's able to apply that. Maybe he doesn't apply it to the right person, you know, depending on where the hate is. So I do like that they've kind of left the door open there, that it's not kind of a complete kind of going back to you know, the pre-courage removal days. In terms of like the kit here, I think that there's some potential for it. Obviously, that the ability that you were talking about that's similar to calculated rend, it does also have a follow-up attack built into it where it's going to add that in. It buffs it onto him for 3 turns. And being that he's kind of a specialist in crit damage, and seems like he almost has an imperil effect that you were talking about there for crit damage. That is one of the main ways to increase follow-up attacks. So we're still kind of, obviously this is all just come out today. It's all very new. You know, there'll be more to come on this unit. You know, we'll see more with the JP content creators, see what they are going to do with them over the weeks. But kind of have tempered expectations a little bit. I think that I gather that you're the same there in terms of what you were saying. That's kind of where we have to be a little bit right now with these units coming fast and furious. But I do like him a lot as a character. I think he was one of my favorites from the game. So I hope that you know, he ends up being good, because I would like to pull for him.
So I'll say this real quickly. He's absolutely a 100 cost unit. I don't think he's on the Soul or Elia level. That's obviously a tough spot to be, but he's definitely 100 cost worthy. He's definitely at the top of the charts in terms of the best current wind units. If you were to make a wind element tier list, I think my tempered expectations come from where we keep bringing up those classes. Dagger overall has some cards that are good. Good. I guess I'll put a question mark on there. I don't know many other teams that I can like formulate right now where he has a specific role to play. And that's where that utility kind of comes in. I really need to see him in action a little more against certain matchups to see how it works out. I'm really just kind of hard stuck on that lack of slash res pen from my vision card where he probably can get another 40 on his buff. But as we know, buffs fade, buffs are dispellable. So for such a slash heavy character, you know, he does have the pierce attacks and the sub jaw, I guess, but there's a couple things that I'm waiting for other vision cards to come out for before I really say like, oh yeah, he's going to be like a great staple in a bunch of, you know, other teams.
I did see him. I did see Odibus stream today where he was kind of testing him out a little bit. Some people in his guild had already maxed him out to 140, you know, within a couple of hours. So that was pretty crazy. He looked pretty good in kind of mocking out what he was showing. He was doing some extreme damage. I'll say that he was putting out quite a bit of damage. Even against, you know, strong physical defensive units like an Alphonse, for example. I was pleasantly surprised with the damage output. His survivability against area of effect damage really bad. I think you can expect that because I mean he doesn't have protect, he doesn't have you know, AOE res. He's more of like a unit resistance specialist, so he's going to fit into that bucket. He's going to be good against Elia. He's going to be good against Saul. He's going to be good against a Melania and kind of units of that ilk. The Sephiroths of the world, he's not going to be quite as strong. That's kind of where he's sitting. But yeah, that was kind of the update for Final Fantasy IX. Obviously, there was that new Holovision card that we touched on. One thing that I do like about that card is that the job spread does cover all 3 of these collab units, and then all that's, you know, you could potentially use that to put them into a party, which is something that I've always wanted for these collabs, and we haven't seen it in, you know, Final Fantasy V, and we didn't see it with 8 in terms of the cards that came out. So I really like that they've done that with 9. It's kind of a fun thing for the fans that, you know, collect, you know, all of the collab units. So I was happy to see that despite the price.
Right. Do you want to peek at that vision card quick? I don't know if we've actually looked at the attributes of it yet.
Yeah, let's let me pull it up here. So here's the vision card. It's already up on Word of Calc. Obviously you got kind of the artwork from the game there. This one is, so like I said, it's a job-based card. You're going to have the dagger class on there. You're going to have maces on there, bows on there, spears on there, and then the black mage group is on there as well. So it's covering 4 different jobs. Like you were saying earlier with the holo cards, 4 different party effects. So that's all new. What I'm not sure is shown here is if one of those is for a specific mode, or if were you able to gather that so far?
Yeah. So from what I can tell, you get 2 of them by, you know, raising the card. You get a third one when you max it. That's like we do right now. The fourth one that you get, from what I can tell, is actually unlocked via a quest. I think the Vision Card quest, that you have to complete that quest, and then you get the fourth. The PvE effects of this, that are, I think it's PvE if I recall, are not currently listed on this. I don't know if that's a data dump thing with Wood of Calc, or maybe it's not quantified properly, but I think these are not part of the Hollow Vision Card mode upgrades. Those are separate.
For people that don't know exactly what we're talking about, with these HoloVision cards, they enable basically a global buff for your account that hits all of your units. It is limited to specific modes for each card. Like each card will, their effects will touch on one game mode or two game modes or whatever it is. I think I heard that this card is 5% HP and 3% initial AP. I believe that those are the effects here. So nothing game breaking there, but a nice perk. Obviously, the more of these cards that you pick up, those are be additive, and eventually they'll add up to something greater. But yeah, that's interesting system. I'm just a little bit kind of worried about the pricing that obviously that we talked about a few minutes ago. Yeah, so that was about it for 9 so far. Obviously, there's going to be more to come with Vivi and his vision card, next week, and probably some Trials of Reckoning with some interesting equipment as well. We'll talk about that in the future, but there is something else that they teased on that live stream, which is kind of a new story event. It's a big story event. Always at these anniversaries, they kind of unveil a new story, costume change character. And this time it's young Helena who is going to be coming into that light element. What are your thoughts there about Helena?
Just all we know, obviously, is the cost and the element. Um, I guess we know the character. I like that they're bringing in the younger version of the character. It's kind of like, okay, what does that add from a lore perspective? I know they're building up additional story for what happened in the events past, but I feel like we already had that event quest where we kind of explored their younger days backstories. That the timing of this character seems odd, unless more. Obviously, they're going to talk about in the lore, which certainly could be the case. How do you cost? I'm okay with it at this point. We've had so many 100 costs. I don't have a strong opinion on that at this point. I'm almost, what's the word, numb to it.
Yeah.
But as a late unit, like this, we haven't had, we had a couple of light units. Bart's obviously comes to mind, but we've had a lot of overemphasis on lightning and earth that I think even light is still prime for a couple of the newer units. Light is still a very well-rounded cast, but I think adding her to it, and I'm obviously curious to see what weapon they give her, but just purely looking at an element perspective, I don't think that's a swing and a miss by any means. How about you?
Glad that light is kind of coming in. Like you said, it, obviously here in global, we've gotten some additional support with it from Addison Ray. So I feel like our light element is in a little bit better spot than where JP is. But on the other hand, all of 2022, light was one of the kind of the weaker elements of that year. So far in 2023, that's kind of continued. It seems like Helena might be that first brick to kind of get some better parity with the dark element. Very curious to see what her role is going to be. Like, is she going to be like another tank unit here? Like, obviously, Light does not have any current generation tank. Something that they've always been known for. Like in the 80 cost era, they had some of the best ones that still hold up to this day. But yeah, I'm very curious to kind of get more details here. And from the story aspect and the lore aspect, let's see what they do with it. I like those characters. I'd like to see them explored more. I was really surprised to see young Moraga in the artwork, and they kind of
Yeah, they
showed
killed it.
him. So that was really cool. But yeah, another thing that they teased there was from the reliquaries, and they showed off a Veritas unit, Veritas of the Winds from FFBE, and they kind of teased in black some of the other Veritas. I think like fire and water were kind of, you could tell from the outlines there. Obviously, being a big FFBE player back in the day, what do you think about that?
I'm very excited, if only because I'm curious to see what they do. I have been waiting for the pin to drop on connecting the universes of FFBE and Wodev. We're 4 years into the game. We've had that breadcrumb trail of M. Nellis and her summoning. Oh, God, was it Varus of the Light? I think it was. I can't remember which one, but there obviously seems to be even. Oh, can I lore drop something with Melania that's been super interesting?
Mhm.
Apparently, M. Nellis Laboratory has some futuristic things that Melnia's class, Simulcra, is a like a mecha type Word, it's hard to describe, but I know they're in her weapon. Look at the weapon description. It does something to talk about like unexplained origins, and even Jaden's Kesar gun is lumped into there. There's been some really interesting theory craft from M. Nellis, who I know obviously is connected to FFBE and obviously has some whatever, but uh, that's total side topic. But the fact that they're bringing the Veritas in here, it's all kind of adding up together, and I'm really intrigued to see what they do with it because I think there's stuff to explore. We've already got enough characters from that world. No reason why you can't actually make it canon that they're in our world somehow, or at least like there's a line connecting them. But yeah, I wish the characters, the Veritas characters, were maybe not selection quest based. I think that's what we've been teased so far is that you get them via quest acquisition, and so obviously we're a little jaded from that perspective. Selection quests aren't the strongest units. It'd be cool if units actually could do something, but then again, I don't know. I'm happy with the current units anyway. So, what do you think?
Yeah, so Veritas of the Wind is the very first one, not from the selection quest, but from the reliquaries, I think is what they said on the stream. So it's going to be like
Yes.
the PvE content, which I've actually enjoyed that mode. It's pretty challenging. You get good rewards. This is going to be another line in that, and if assuming it's a good unit, which hopefully it is. But yeah, Sid from FFBE, that's the Wind Veritas. He was one of my favorite ones out of them, so I'm excited that he's gonna kind of lead it off. They did say though that the other ones are going to be obtainable by other methods, so I'm assuming that's probably going to mean gotcha maybe for the ones they think will sell well, and maybe there'll be some other free ones. We'll have to see, but yeah, definitely all exciting news in terms of nine, in terms of the story stuff. It's not going to be that far away from us. We're probably going to be looking at that to kick off December. I would say we're kind of in that 1 month behind cadence for that's kind of what Gumi said they wanted to stick to, and kind of with the increased schedule and the things they've been doing with kind of overlapping vision cards and units, it seems like we're going to be able to get there very quickly here in the next couple weeks. All right, so that's going to wrap up the spy report, and we're going to go into the Q&A now. So question one, what do you feel the next level bump of vertical unit progression will be seeing in the future? How soon do you feel we're going to get it? And if it comes too soon, will it break the rest of the players remaining in the game? You want to kick that one off?
Yeah, I mean, so I obviously don't want them to power creep characters too vertically in terms of their progression. We've seen that with Elia and Soul in terms of what they've done for ability power creep. I don't like that because there's really no controls or checks and balances on it, and it's kind of random, and it's just not fun to play against. It limits some creativity sometimes when you're just kind of forced for the same characters. What I'd like to see, just speaking purely from like a vertical unit progression, though, I like what they did with the limit break upgrades. I would love to see other system changes for level for unit upper progression. And a couple that come to mind would be maybe like items where you can increase the potency of certain attacks. So like an attack currently does 200% or 165%. If you had a system where you could upgrade and surpass some of those levels to increase the modifiers, I could see that being a gotcha mechanic. More generally speaking, I think it'd be really cool if you could equip like maybe three passive abilities or two counter abilities, being able to min max that way. I think you could really make some characters break out of their shells if you could equip three passive abilities. I've had a lot of character reviews where there's too many good ones to pick from. You can only pick two. Then I think that would be a really good like vertical unit progression where you have to buy or acquire who knows a certain item and it allows you that third slot. But that's kind of what I was thinking, Fred. Is I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would definitely like some of those ideas. I'll throw in it as one that I mentioned I think a week or two ago is that I want to see they be able to expand the sub jobs on the EX boards and kind of open up additional abilities that they might be missing from those sub jobs. Like if you have a white mage that maybe they got holy as their max skill for that sub, maybe you really want to have full life access. Now you can open that up in that specific node board. Things like that, I think, would be a cool way to kind of continue to kind of progress the characters in an interesting way. Another thing that I really wanted to see from Gumi is I really liked what they did with the job overhauls with all of like the the Rangers and Vikings and all those jobs that they did over that year or so. They never upgraded any of like the unique jobs, which is all of the collab characters, and then even a ton of like the story characters have their own unique jobs. Never got
Right.
updated. I wouldn't mind them seeing go back and maybe touch up some of those units. In terms of like the next level of power creep, we've seen what they're going to do for this year. It's around the vision cards. I don't think it's going to break the rest of the players. I think that it will break some. Hopefully, Gumi will get it together and reel it in a little bit here so that we don't lose too many. But we'll see what happens.
I agree. And actually, I really like your perspective on upgrading some of the older jobs. I immediately think of what he did with Summer Jaden, and overhauling some of his job. That there's a lot of these older 100 cost units that their unique jobs were unique back in the day. They're really not anymore. And I'm going to stop talking there because I think that thought segues perfectly here to our second question. So I'll let you kick that off.
Yeah, so question two. In terms of Pierce teams, what are your guys' thoughts on Oberon? I notice he's often left out in lieu of Classy Glassy. Just curious.
Oh, so real quick, I also it's not Classy Glassy, right? It should be Fire Glassy, all right? If we're talking Pierce units.
Yeah, I think that's
I think Classy Glassy.
I think the question said Classy Glassy, but I'm sure that he's referring to Win Glassy or Flag Bearer Glassy there as obviously the better Pierce unit.
Totally, which I totally agree with. And Oberyn is exactly one of those characters I'm talking about in terms of a 100 cost unit that hasn't gotten any real other sizable upgrades. There's a lot in this kit that's been power up that was once special and unique. Things like that General Barrier. That's really nothing anymore. And he lacks a lot of those stronger buff against certain levels of penetration or utility that he is a character that's not deserving of the 100 cost anymore. And I think an upgrade to that job would help because in terms of Pierce teams, I don't think Oberyn offers anything that Classic Glassy couldn't, or I'm saying it now, Flag Glaciella couldn't do already in terms of damage, utility, survivability. I really just don't see anything that he brings other than the imperils, which are good, but I don't think he's got the damage and survivability to back it up. Unfortunately, I've never had used him recently. He just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of suffers a little bit because he was one of the first units to get the 140 Dream Awakening, where if you go back and look at some of those early Dream Awakenings, they're fine, but they're really nothing special for those units. And maybe if he had gotten it later, maybe it would have been more of a significant bump for him. I agree, though. I think that he needs a little bit more. He's definitely one of the prime candidates that could use the job overhaul. I think that Gilgamesh is another one for me that although he has gotten a couple of nice upgrades, I think that his job was very unique at the time it was released. I don't think it offers as much utility or damage or survivability for the current meta. Last question here. Question number 3. What are your thoughts on map effects, and their impact on shaping the meta? Do you believe Gumi is too heavy-handed with them, and do you want them to continue? And this was actually my question that I threw in here, so I'll let you kick this one off as well, and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier with the new Guild War map effects, and I do think Gumi's too heavy-handed with them. I think giving these things like 20 unit res or 20 AoE res greatly skews the initial impression of many of these units. Those are sizable survivability metrics. I don't know what to call them, but they do drive metas. They're material enough, and I think they are misleading in many senses. That when you think of old map bonuses, it used to be like 25 slash attack up. Like it was very mundane. And yeah, it was a nice little bonus, but it wasn't the kind of thing that you'd say, oh, we have to use this character or element because they're getting a 25 slash attack bonus. Like it was not material enough to move the needle. And I think more and more lately they are. And so I like map effects to throw X factors into things. I don't like the map effects to too heavily skew the most recent unit because that's how you obviously drive like forced meta changing, where you're playing some of these new characters, you're incentivized to rush to build them, to take advantage of this huge crutch that they're given. I don't like it, particularly as a content creator too, where if it's misleading for results in the short term, I don't like that because I think too many people get the wrong impression sometimes and get too overexcited for a unit, and it's the kind of thing where it's like it's not going to last. I don't know. How about you?
Yeah, 100%. I think they have been too heavy-handed with it. It's been that way for some time now. It really kind of reached a critical mass for me, I think, on this most recent regular Guild War map where the lightning element was getting. I think they were getting an offensive effect and the unit resistance that I think they were doubling up. I want to say, but it was definitely making Lightning way stronger than they should have been. And they were already extremely strong, just because Elia was new and Saul was in the game yet. So it just made it even that much harder to counter that latest meta unit, even if you did have the tools to do it. I think we're seeing that continue here. Obviously we talked about the new Guild War map and Earth kind of getting some pretty significant bumps there. I don't know. I agree. I liked it a little bit better when it was a little bit more smaller effects, nice perks that kind of highlighted maybe some small strengths of the unit, but really didn't try to put the thumb on the scale too much to, like you said, kind of puppet master the meta there. So I don't know. We'll kind of see what wisdom prevails from their side, but it seems like they're sticking with this method here for a while. Yeah, so that's going to do it for today, guys. Sorry for kind of the lower production quality today, but props to Will for kind of coming in here and the dedication from Vegas. Hopefully he has a good rest of the week out there and has some fun and maybe wins a little bit of money. But yeah, hope everybody has a great week. How about you, Will? Any final thoughts for today?
Thanks for emceeing this. I know I normally am able to take the lead, but hopefully we still were able to talk about these topics in the depth they deserve. There's obviously a lot of exciting stuff, things that we have to kind of digest still. But appreciate your time as always. I know it's Halloween, so long night for you with the trick or treating and whatnot. But that's it as well. We'll talk to you soon, and thanks again for tuning in.